When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Eagles fans, welcome to a special edition of the Lehocky Postgame Show. I'm your guy, Tony DeShields II, and I'm joined with our Eagles insider, John McMullen, coming at you guys live from, FedEx Field, right? You know, we know the Washington Commanders kind of playing like a dumpster fire. We totally understand that, but they did it. I hope the accommodations weren't too bad for our guy, John McMullen. The Philadelphia Eagles beat the Commanders in the shootout, man, 38-31 to improve to 7-1. Wow, man. It was a hell of a game. Super entertaining. Had me on the edge of my seat. In the first half, they almost had us. But in that second half, man, the Philadelphia Eagles came back to play, putting up 28 points, man, and holding the Commanders to 14 points, 7 points if you want to be technical, because the last one was kind of a garbage TD. But John, let's get into it, man. Talk about your observations. What are the vibes right now? What are some of the things that you noticed in this game?
I say this all the time, John. Excuse me, I'm getting all choked up already. Games have personalities.
Yes.
And this one had a personality. I think Sam Howell started 20 of 21. So I think Eric Bieniemy came in with a great game plan. He knew and he understood, and we talked about this all week. Sam Howell was going to have to get the ball out quickly against this Philadelphia Eagles defense and pass rush, and they were just getting out bubble screen after. But it's the first bubble screen only game plan early in the game, and they were having success with it. And Sam finished up 39 of 52 for 397, 4 touchdowns. He played a great game. They had a great game plan. But, you know, the Eagles do what they do. They wear teams down, and they out-talent teams, and they win in the end. And that's sort of what happened today. It was ugly. But when Reed Blankenship, who came back from the rib injury, did not play well, he and Sidney Brown were talking about sort of the next play mentality. You have to have a short memory as a defensive back. You can't say, woe is me. You got to go out there and try to make a play. Reed made a play, and all of a sudden the game tilts towards the Eagles, and that was pretty much it. As you said, there was some garbage time shenanigans. They had to wait for the last final onside kick, but that was pretty much the tilting point of the game, and it was a shootout, you know. For all the people who think they can explain this league, explain how you can shut down the Miami Dolphins one week and let the Washington Commanders go up and down the field. It's a crazy league, but that's where I go. Jim Schwartz, games have personalities. This game had a personality, and the Eagles were able to play it and win the shootout.
Yeah, man. The Philadelphia Eagles, let's be honest, like you said, this thing was ugly. They had 2 crucial turnovers on the goal line, one by way of Kenny Gainwell, the other by way of Jalen Hurts. Another game where they've lost a turnover battle. And I got to admit, I've been concerned, and I still am concerned, because you turn the ball over 2 times at the goal line, and you give the other team multiple opportunities. it's going to come back to bite you, especially when you're going up against a team like the Dallas Cowboys next week, Buffalo Bills, Chiefs, so on and so forth. But, there were still some positive things to pull from this game. I mean, Jalen Hurts, let's really talk about it. Jalen Hurts, 29 for 38, completed, I believe, 76% of his passes, 4 passing touchdowns, averaged just over 8 yards an attempt, 135.7 passer rating. We know it was the A.J. Brown show once again. And Devontae Smith finally had his the closest thing we can call a breakout performance of the season. Just talk about your observations from Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Just that offense as far as from a passing perspective.
Yeah, well, if you look at AJ and Devontae specifically, I mean, he threw the football to those two guys 15 times, and every time he threw it to him, he came up with a reception. So AJ
like
had
those
8
odds.
targets. Yeah, Devontae had 7 targets, 15 total. Again, AJ sets the record, goes over 125 for the 6th consecutive game. They've been playing NFL football for a long time. Nobody's ever done that before. So that's, even in this sort of pass happy era, that's pretty impressive. 2 more touchdowns. Devontae had a touchdown, as you mentioned. Julio Jones had a touchdown.
Right. Yeah. Who would have thought?
So evidently the Eagles and Jalen Hurts and Julio were working on that play all week in practice, and it came up. Julio made a great catch. It was a little bit behind him. Took a bit of a hit, but yeah, I mean, the passing game was spectacular, and it needed to be because, conversely, as we mentioned, it wasn't as much down the field. It was all underneath, but the back 7 on defense did not play well. A lot of moving parts. Sidney Brown, most of the work in the slot, but they also use Eli Ricks on some obvious passing downs. Kevin Byard starts his first game. Reed Blankenship's back after missing a game. So a lot of moving parts. They didn't play well, but came up with a big play. Reed came up with a big play when he needed to. So sometimes that's how you got to do it. 24 out of 26 were at Tone. Starts with Jalen Hurts. The Eagles have won 24 of 26. They just find ways to win. And when they don't, the 2 times they didn't win, Washington at Lincoln Financial Field last season, they had 4 turnovers. They were -3 on the turnover ratio. And against the New York Jets this year, they were -4 turnovers. So the only time they don't win is when they beat themselves. And it's a good team, but this was not their best performance. But in a lot of ways, that's what marks a good team. You win when you don't have your best stuff, so to speak. And that's what the Eagles did.
Yeah, speaking of not having their best stuff, Jalen Hurts' knee continues to be a topic of conversation. At least, for myself, I noticed that he definitely was limping a little bit throughout that game. Didn't really seem to have the burst. I believe he only ran the ball 4 times. So you can tell he was really intentional about winning this game from the pocket. What does that say about Jalen Hurts and where he is in his career? He gets a lot of flack, in my opinion, for being the dual threat guy, and for being able to win the game in a multitude of ways, with his legs, so on and so forth. I personally don't think his passing game gets enough respect. But just speak on that injury and just how he was able to battle through that.
Well, he's done talking about it. He said that after the game. So everybody can keep talking about it, but he's not going to keep talking about it. He's got a bone bruise. He's playing with a sleeve, sort of a sleeve brace on it. Yeah, and he's a little bit limited running the football right now. But, yeah, that's the mark of a really difficult quarterback to deal with when you can beat teams in multiple ways, and that's what Jalen Hurts has proven he's been able to do. He wins the shootout today, whether you go back to week 2 against Minnesota, whether running the football down the opposition's throats. Those are the 2 extremes. They proved they could win one way. They proved they can win another way tonight. And they've been doing that for 2+ seasons, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This running game, another week where it seems like they're struggling to get it going. It seems like the running game really hasn't been the same since Cam Jurgens left, and then Sewell Pettit goes down with the injury. Speak on this running game, man. They're going to need it in the long run, but right now they seem to be getting by pretty well without it. Speak on that.
Yeah, I mean, I had a long discussion on the pregame show with Seth about that. Yeah, I mean, I got to disagree with people and their mentality. I mean, whether you want to call it old school, did you really want them to run the football in this game when they got down 14-3? Because if you did, they're probably going to lose the game. And especially if Washington keeps, again, we told you the numbers, 39 of 52, 397. Washington was throwing it all over the lot. I've never seen Jahan Dotson play better. Jamison Crowder came back from nowhere. Logan Thomas, they couldn't deal with. Terry McLaurin was actually hurt them. He had back-to-back drops on a key drive, and he typically kills the Eagles. He had the touchdown interception early. Curtis Samuel was doing his thing until he got hurt and was forced to leave. I don't understand what people are looking at. If they're saying run the ball down 14-3, you're going to lose this football game. And again, Jalen Hurts, you just mentioned the numbers: 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 319 yards. They came into this game.
Has he played a better game than this? I mean, I don't recall Jalen Hurts playing a game this. I mean, I saw the Super Bowl, but 4 touchdowns, just completely killing you in the air. That was a sight to behold.
He started in week 2 last season against Minnesota when it was a completely different Minnesota team with Ed Donatel, who plays the Big Fangio system. They came in saying, all right, we're going to stop the run and we're going to force this guy to throw the ball to beat us. And he killed him throwing football. Conversely, this year they went the exact opposite way. And he proved he had the football IQ to say, all right, you're going to play 6 people in the box. I'm going to run the football. I mean, they were not effective running the ball early and very limited. Don't get me wrong, it was a very limited sample size. But part of the reason that is because it was ugly early and they got behind. So there were 4 runs in the first half. And by the way, Washington only ran it 7 times in the first half because they were chucking it all over the yard. And that's why I go back to my original point. Games have personalities. This was a shootout. And if you're bringing a knife to a gunfight, you're going to lose. And if you're bringing a rushing mentality to a team that's going to put up 31 points, and if you're going to run the ball, probably more than that, you're going to have some issues.
Yeah, again, like you said, this game had a personality. This game had its own complexion. And because they got down so early, it definitely lended to them having to pass the ball a lot more. And, you brought up that Minnesota Vikings game, Jalen Hurts' performance in that matchup. I'm willing to argue that this game had little to no room for error in that second half. I mean, they were down double digits. Not double digits. They were down 17-10 coming out of the half. And then I believe there was a point where they went down 24-17, if I'm not mistaken. So there was little to no room for error in this game. And it seemed to me, Jalen Hurts, like we always talk about, he tends to put the team on his back in these kind of situations. It seems like Jalen Hurts was just playing on another level right now, despite that injury.
Yeah, well, he's been playing at a high level for a while. I mean, the one thing you're concerned about is coming in, he had 10 turnovers, which was second in the NFL to Desmond Ridder. He gets credit for the tush-push fumble. Maybe people can stop talking about that because it was unsuccessful for once. I don't know if that was his fault. It's difficult to see here at FedEx Field, so I have to watch the game on replay. A couple people said the snap didn't get up to Jalen Hurts, but either way, as the quarterback, you get responsibility for that. So now he's got 11 turnovers. He didn't throw a pick, so that was positive. He's got 8 interceptions. His career high for interceptions is 9 in 2021. And last season, he didn't basically turn it over at all. So they've been turning over the football too much, and that's probably the biggest issue they have, because I just said when you talk about that 24 out of 26 run, the 2 losses are directly attributed to turnovers. So that would be my biggest concern. And if they cash in, because Kenny Gainwell fumbled at the 3-yard line, Jalen fumbled at the 1-yard line, if they cash in there, they're probably not even fighting to get back and win this game with the Reed Blankenship interception.
Yeah, I want to talk about AJ Brown a little bit more, John. I mean, 6 games back to back with over 125 receiving yards. Had 2 touchdowns today. I don't know, John. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's premature. I'm ready to call this guy one of the greatest Philadelphia Eagles receivers in history, man. You tell me, though. Maybe am I a little too excited?
Before they even played a game together, and this got Eagles fans very upset. I said the AJ Brown, Devontae Smith are the most talented tandem of receivers the Eagles have ever had. I didn't say they were the best, because that involves production and longevity and doing it over a long period of time.
Right.
But by far the most talented duo. And you've seen it now, year plus. Yeah, AJ's a different level. The only other receiver you compare him to is Terrell Owens, who was here for a very short period of time. To put it mildly, AJ's a better citizen, a better teammate. He's a team captain. Nick Sirianni called him the best person on the team. He's a good guy. He does everything the right way. And he's a tremendous football player. No, it's not. You're not jumping the gun. He's one of the best receivers the Eagles have ever had. He's on a very short list.
Eagles fans, y'all heard it here first, man. One of the best to ever do it. Probably is the best to ever do it for the Philadelphia Eagles. John, would you say right now top 3 receiver in the league?
Boy, that's tough. He's in the conversation. I mean, I would put my top 3 would be in no particular order: Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams. Jefferson's hurts right now. He's on IR with a hamstring. Devontae Adams is in a bad situation. I will say he's playing better than anybody. I mean, nobody's ever done this before. Is he better than Tyreek Hill?
Pick your flavor, right? Do you like vanilla? You like chocolate? You like strawberry? Pick your flavor, right?
Is he better than Justin Jefferson when Justin's healthy? I don't know. That's tough. But Devontae Adams, he's the best route runner maybe I've ever seen. I don't know. But to be in the conversation with those guys, it's pretty good.
Absolutely. I want to definitely shift gears to the defense side of the ball. We've lauded this Eagles offense enough, man. Obviously, Hurts and AJ Brown deserve it, but this defense, man, they were pretty abysmal on 3rd down. It seemed like they had a hard time getting Sam Howell and that offense off the field. I mean, again, Sam Howell plays one of the best games of his young career. He actually, he actually won up to his previous performance versus the Eagles. So, I mean, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 397 passing yards. You almost let this young man throw for 400 yards on you. That's it. Kind of speaks to what we talked about earlier this week, right? The fact that this team is really led by their pass rush, and if the pass rush isn't getting home, which they really didn't, any quarterback can pretty much have their way with this, passing defense.
Yeah, and I've been saying that for a while, and you kind of saw it in short doses with the Rams game, the first half of the Rams game, even the first couple drives in Tampa Bay before things went off the rails for the Buccaneers. You saw it in short doses that if teams could hold up in pass protection, the back end was going to have some difficulty. And you saw it again today. It'll be interesting. This is why this league is so crazy. They play Miami. Nobody can shut up about Miami. Greatest offense since the Rams. Greatest show on turf. 37 points a game, 500 yards a game. They give up 244 yards to that team and 10 points. It was 17 in the game, but remember, one was a pick six. And they give up 244. And then Washington, which can't do a damn thing against the New York Giants, who've been an abject disaster this year, 472 yards and 31 points. And probably could have had more if Terry McLaurin didn't drop a couple passes, like I said. Yeah, it was not a good day for the defense. And we'll see. I really do think Eric Bieniemy had a great game plan. And people are going to harp on one sack and say, oh, the Eagles pass rush didn't get home. How are you getting home? So, quick bubble screams. How are you getting home?
Right.
That means the back end. You can let the reception up, but you got to be a little bit tighter in coverage. You got to make sure there's no yards after catch. Down the middle of the field, which has been a problem all year, was a big problem today. But, to give him credit, Sam Howell, who had been, beasting in the middle of the field, that's what he threw. He's just a little bit off on the interception of Reed Blankenship, and Reed was right there, and it goes the other way. And that's how quick, that's how thin the margin can be between success and failure at times. But if teams look at this and say, all right, this is how we're going to attack the Eagles, they have to make some adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. Two guys who stood out to me who didn't really have the best of games. You mentioned one already in Reed Blankenship. He made up for it with the interception, but overall, not really a tight game. Nakobe Dean, man, he's a guy that the Eagles have been trying to get back on the field. And so far, I haven't really been too impressed with his play over the past couple weeks or since he's been back. What were your overall thoughts on that linebacker core? Again, you mentioned it. They were getting pretty much carved up in the middle of that field. Which is, again, the weakness of this Philadelphia Eagles defense, the linebackers and the safeties. I mean, you add in Kevin Byard, so you kind of piecemeal that and you improve that to a degree. Eventually, he has to acclimate himself in this defense much more. But what was your evaluation of these linebackers today, man? It seems like they had a hard time with the tight ends. They just, they were just pretty much doing a lot of chasing today.
Yeah, Nakobe had a lot of tackles today, but he struggled in coverage. No doubt about it. Nick Morrow as well. I thought Zach Cunningham made some decent plays with his length. He was the only one who kind of held up a little bit. But I thought Cindy Brown made some nice plays in at times, but as we expected with a young rookie, maybe the consistency isn't there from play to play. And I don't like this piecemeal approach. With Sidney playing early downs and Eli Ricks coming in and playing on obvious passing downs, I don't think that worked out well. And then, you had some growing pains. I mean, Kevin Byard had been here for a week, less than a week, really. And he's got to play essentially the whole game. And Reed Blankenship was coming off a week where he didn't play, and he had his worst game of the year. Until that interception, which that'll erase some of the bad taste, but he didn't play well overall. It was just a bad performance by the back seven. Jordan Davis not 100%, but was able to go. Jalen Carter got hurt, lower back injury. We have to keep an eye on that because when he's not out there, they're not the same team. Reddick did some nice things. He finally gets home late in the game, strip sack. Josh Sweat played well as usual, but yeah, when you don't see those sack numbers, people assume the defensive front isn't playing well, but I don't think that was the case. I think they played well. I think the back seven did not play well.
Again, what screams off the page to me is lack of continuity on the back end. You know, like you mentioned, Kevin Byard, new guy comes in. Reed Blankenship didn't play last week. All of a sudden, you're throwing him back in there now. Sidney Brown still getting his legs under him after missing several weeks with the hamstring. You're going back and forth between him and Eli Ricks in the slot. I mean, that just seems like a recipe for disaster, you know, with your DBs.
Yeah, it is. And anytime you have, as I said, all those moving parts, it's a little bit different. We've been talking about communication all year. I mean, the Eagles have
And that's
now
what his defense
played-
is based off of, communication. If you keep changing the voices, I mean, who are you listening to at this point?
You know, I asked James Bradbury this week during the week leading up to the game, have you ever been a part of something like this? They use 7 nickel corners coming into this game. And they're back to Sidney Brown and some Eli Ricks, and who knows, they might get back to Bradley Roby. The deadline's coming up on Tuesday. Howie wants to make another move. It might be a linebacker, it might be a slot corner. You know, there might be more change, but one thing I know is when things finally do settle down past Tuesday, the trade deadline's Tuesday, got to settle on somebody. Can't be this piecemeal stuff because it's not working. It's not working.
So at this point, right, everything we know, everything we've seen, especially in this game, I want to know, John, who, by your estimation, were the players of the game, you know, for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Obviously, we talked about, you know, the game breakers on offense. Defense didn't really have their best day, but who were your standouts? Who were your players of the game who pretty much shifted the tide? Who pretty much shifted the momentum of this game for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, offensively, you can choose a lot of guys. Certainly Jalen Hurts, but I would lean towards AJ Brown for making history. Just from that standpoint, I would lean towards AJ. But you know, Jalen is the quarterback, and you know he's probably more responsible for the win. But for this week, I'm going to go AJ. Defensively, it's tough. You know, you can go Reed because he made the big play, but again, I think overall he didn't have a great game. I would say the best Eagle on my first sort of eye test watch was probably Hassan Reddick, probably who's been playing very well since he got that cast off his thumb. He's been playing like the Hassan Reddick of last season, and he was the one guy who, you know, was creating some issues, not only in the pass rush, what little they had because they were getting the football out so quickly, but also in the run game, which is, I think people are surprised how good of a run defender Hassan is because he's so small for essentially a defensive end, even though they call him a linebacker. He does a tremendous job in that aspect, and I think he's playing very well. But you know, when you give up 497 yards, nobody's gonna be breaking down door to say, "Hey, good job, defense."
I mean, yeah, I totally understand it, but you know, you said it yourself for Hassan Reddick. You know, his ability to just play the edge, and he's such a tremendous run defender at this point in his career, despite his size. And then a guy who just has an innate ability to just show up in the biggest of moments. I mean, this guy is just a closer, John. Like you know, at the beginning of the season, you know, things were kind of, you know, looming in terms of his contract and was he happy with it, him being underpaid, so on and so forth. This is going to be a very interesting offseason, and obviously I'm jumping very, very far ahead, but I've been thinking about this. Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat, they're both going to be in contract years after this season. How do you expect Harry Roseman to navigate this thing, man? When you have two dynamic pass rushers like those two guys, man, especially again Reddick. I'm calling him the Chronicles of Reddick, man, because he just seems indefensible at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Hassan is already underpaid, and so is Josh, and they both signed extensions. That's part of the reason Howie's good at his job. But you know, I don't worry about Howie fitting things in. Edge rusher is a position that has exploded on the market. So you're going to have to catch up to that if you're the Eagles at some point, and you're going to have to make some difficult decisions. Kind of depends on other guys developing. You know, obviously, you know, we're getting near the end of Fletcher Cox. We're getting near the end of Brandon Graham. So, you know, most of the younger talent is inside with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. So I think they'll be able to keep both Hassan Reddick. Hassan loves it here. Obviously, he's from South Jersey, went to school at Temple. Um, Loves the area, loves the team, loves the organization. As long as you pay him a fair market rate, I don't think you're going to have issues. And same thing with Josh. I mean, Josh loves that, you know, the Eagles gave him an opportunity. And that's why he gave him sort of a bit of a discount when he signed his extension. So, and they don't really have heir apparents ready to go. They have good depth, but Brandon's 35, Derek Barnett. We all know he might not even be here Tuesday. Who knows?
Right. Nolan Smith is pretty wet behind the ears. Young guy, not really ready to go.
Nolan's very young, and obviously he has a big upside, but he's got a long way to go. So, they got to make those guys happy.
All right, a couple more, John, before I let you go, man. I know you got a long ride back from Maryland all the way back to Philadelphia, so I want to get a couple more in, so I can let you break down and do your thing. We talked about that. We briefly touched on some injuries that happened throughout this game. Can you give us a final update from today's injury report, post-game wise?
Well, the Eagles aren't giving any updates, but Jalen Carter is the one I'm most concerned about because he didn't return to the game with some back problems. Suo Opeta got banged up, but he returned. You got to see Tyler Steen take his first snaps as a rookie at right guard, but Suo was able to return. As I mentioned, Jordan Davis was banged up with a hamstring coming in, but he seemed to persevere and get through it. And we'll see how that moves moving forward. Grant Calcaterra left with a concussion, so he's going to have to go into protocol. We'll see how serious it is. But Jalen Carter will be the most you got to keep an eye on that one.
All right. Final question for you, John. Dallas Cowboys won today. Now they're 5-2. Eagles obviously won today. Now they're 7-1. The Washington Commanders lost. The New York Giants lost a nail biter against the New York Jets. This is clearly at this point in the season a two-team race. Eagles got the Dallas Cowboys next Sunday. So far, what are your early thoughts on that matchup based on everything we've seen today from the Philadelphia Eagles? The Cowboys pretty much took it to the Los Angeles Rams. They had a very, very good game. Let's call it what it is. All three phases of the ball worked in their favor: offense, defense, and special teams. Eagles got them at home right now. What's your early evaluation of that matchup and your evaluation of the NFC East right now?
You're right. It's a two-horse race, obviously, and I said that before the season. It's borne out that way. I know Eagles fans don't like it, but Dallas is a very talented team. And these two games that they play against each other will sort of tell the tale of this division. And obviously the Eagles want to win, get the number one seed. San Francisco's losing again. We'll see if Cincinnati can hold on. So it's all about getting that number one seed. And if San Francisco, as they're going through this stretch, keeps falling back, it becomes the Dallas Cowboys as the lead threat for that potential number one seed. You also have to throw Detroit in there, but, they had such a poor performance in Baltimore last week. I'm not sure they're ready. The Cowboys, though, are talented. But I will say they're not as consistent as the Eagles. But when they bring their A game, they can beat anybody. They can beat anybody.
There you have it, Eagles fans. Your Philadelphia Eagles took it to the Washington Commanders, beating them in the shootout, 38-31. Again, Jalen Hurts had a tremendous game, completing 76% of his passes, going 29 for 38, 319 passing yards, 4 passing TDs, 1 fumble loss, no interceptions though, so he managed to recoup that. A.J. Brown, 8 catches on 8 targets, 130 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith, 7 catches on 7 targets, a touchdown with 99 yards. And then Julio Jones gave us an appearance with a very crucial touchdown as well. So listen, your Philadelphia Eagles offense, at least from a passing perspective, right? They are doing a tremendous job. Jalen Hurts took it to the Commanders from the pocket. Despite the fumble loss, he bunkered down and he couldn't really get things going on the ground, obviously because of that, that little hitch in the knee. But to be able to dominate from the pocket the way he did, pretty much playing from behind most of this game, that's something to add on to the resume. That's a guy that deserves a lot much more respect than he gets already in this NFL. John, any final words, anything you're working on right now for SI.com, JAKIBsports.com? Just tell the people where they can find your work, man.
Eagles win, obviously 38-31. So they take this in. You can read me at SI.com, as you mentioned, /NFL/Eagles, JAKIBsports.com. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to write about the dichotomy sort of 1 week to the next about shutting down the best offense in football and not being able to handle the Washington Commanders until late in the game. Tells you about the NFL, man. It's week to week.
It's a week to week league, man. Week to week. It doesn't matter who beat who.
Don't get caught up in 1 week at a time. But what you can get caught up in, and I'm surprised more people in Philadelphia aren't get caught up in, this team finds ways to win.
You need that in the playoffs.
Might be different ways each week. But when you can find different ways to win and you can persevere each and every week, that puts you on top of the heap.
There you have it, Eagles fans. He's John McMullen, our Eagles insider on JAKIB Sports. I'm your guy, Tony DeShields II. You guys were locked in on a special edition of the Pine Lehocky Postgame Show. Again, that's John McMullen. I'm Tony DeShields II. Your Philadelphia Eagles are 7-1, and they got the Dallas Cowboys next week. It's going to be a fun one, you guys. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.